Hi, everyone. Welcome to our continuation of our Sufi Roadshow, aka our Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Noor Kyle.
And I'm the co-host that is not Noor Kyle, Mushtaq.
There you go. And we want to thank you for joining us once again. Obviously, we are in our interesting,
Our beautiful Airbnb.
temporary home for a little bit.
Well, yeah, this is the last time you'll see us here.
Yeah, we will be somewhere else the next time we show up together here. So, do we have any announcements we need to make?
There will be no meeting until after the 16th of next month.
Yeah, so let me pull up the calendar just to double check.
Yeah.
So it is going to be May, I believe, wow, May 21st.
Yeah.
Whoa.
There will undoubtedly be things that pop in. I'm planning on doing live broadcasts from the road.
That's good. Yeah, we should do that.
So you'll get videos from Sweden and Denmark. And
long story short, this won't be the last you see of us until May 21st, even if you're not going to see us at the retreat on May 8th through 12th. So there you go. Any other announcements?
Like our videos, subscribe to us, leave comments.
Yes. And if your question doesn't get asked this time, we are likely to do another one of these probably.
Yeah, if people like it, we'll do more.
Down the road.
Down the road.
All right. We should just get started, shall we?
Yeah, let's.
Okay. So given that we are in unusual circumstances, we've been doing slightly unusual talks, breaking up our usual routine. And this week, we let folks know that we wanted to do a AMA, meaning ask me anything, ask us anything.
Ask her anything.
Yes, I have all the answers. But yeah, so you are welcome to either chime in, or we do have a short list of questions that we've been asked in the forum and via email and stuff like that. So we'll be joining in with a few of those as well. So, how should we get started?
Let's start with anybody here have a question they would just dying to know. Don't everybody talk at once. You can ask us anything. Osama has a question.
And then James.
And then James.
Yes, question for both of you. Reflecting back on your journey, what are some maybe one or two mistakes that you've made, and how have you learned
we're
from those mistakes?
All night with that one.
I want to
well, you can make it shorter.
He was asking, reflecting on our journey, what are one or two mistakes that we have made and how have we dealt with them?
Okay, thank you. I'm a little bit hard of hearing and we didn't have captions on yet. So
yeah, she can't hear, I can't see.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to chew on that for a minute.
Okay.
Do you have one?
Oh God, let me see. Find one that's not too embarrassing. Right? Yeah. There was a period of time where I didn't have a teacher. My first teacher had been killed during the Iranian Revolution. And it took some years before I found somebody who I could feel comfortable working with. So I floated around from place to place, group to group. And in some ways, I think that was a mistake.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I learned a lot, made a lot of friends, but not having somebody who could go, hey, you're really being an asshole about this, get your head straight, would have been very useful at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were kind of undirected and kind of too self-directed in the sense of really not knowing how to course correct for yourself, perhaps?
Yeah, I did not have access to the kinds of things that would have sped me on the path a little bit easier.
Give you an ego check here and there.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Not that I have a big ego.
No.
No. So that was one. Your turn.
All right, my turn. I think one of mine has been not too much of this, but to some extent, like many of us, early on, I had this sense of looking for a path or looking for a way forward that would satisfy this intuitive desire, this hunger I had to be on some kind of spiritual path. And I did a lot of exploration that everyone does, reading books and these days reading online. And that was incidentally a wonderful catalyst for me to find Sufism, generally speaking. But from there, I think I became a little bit too obsessed with the just the floatiness of spirituality, especially when you realize that there's this whole universe of things that you haven't known about in terms of schools and quote unquote metaphysics and all of that. And I think it's so easy as a beginner to trip into thinking you know a lot more than you do. And perhaps becoming a little bit precious about it or pretentious. And I'm sure that I drove some of my best friends a little crazy as a newbie in that realm. And it wasn't for them. So I kind of had to learn to temper that and become like a down-to-earth human being about my spirituality and about my own path, and be a relatable human who wasn't just floating off into space with all of this woo, shit. I guess we could say this woo shit that I felt really kind of attached to and attracted to, that ultimately did not, in most cases, maintain my attention or ultimately feel real and significant enough to me to stick with them. And I think it's important to learn that kind of discernment, often through the experience of whittling down to what's really important to you, what really makes sense to you, what really supports you and feels purposeful. And I can't say that it felt like a waste of time, but as I said, I'm sure that I drove people crazy until I got my stuff in order. So there's that.
Okay. So mistake 2 that I can think of, which was I kept trying to retire.
Ah,
Yeah. Big mistake.
sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there was a point where I had spent years traveling at the behest of my teacher and going to this place, that place. And it got old, sleeping in different places. You never know where you're going to be. And I just went, I should retire now. And, that old saying, man plans, God laughs. Yeah. So let us say that the divine reality found ways to motivate me outside of my retirement.
There you go.
Yeah. So that was a big mistake.
All right. I mean, I'm sure we could think of many.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What's another one?
Hanging out with museum Sufis for you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, yes, there was a time when I, not that there's anything wrong with wearing hijab and all of that, but that came at a time where I felt like the most important aspect of my practice was being visible and hanging out with other people who were visible Muslims and getting caught up in the whole vibe of there being a very specific way to practice Sufism, practice Islam. And of course, they were very strongly tied together, which is as you can see, at this point in our community, we're striving to be very inclusive and not exclusive to people who are Muslims or have any interest in Islam at all, really. Though that certainly inspires us,
Yeah, but we don't
yeah,
care how weird you are.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But during that time, I felt this pressure to really just kind of learn how to wear the facade of formal Islam and, as you say, museum Sufism, where you have the sheikh with the hat and you kiss their hand and you show up to every event and you are very like quiet and subdued and you're just there to listen and keep your mouth shut and absorb and follow the rules and perhaps marry someone in the community that they tell you to marry. Like, I am so lucky that I was able to be on the periphery of that and learn that that was not for me, rather than getting super wrapped up into it. And for me, that would have been damaging. I know that for a fact. So I got a taste of it and then learned to back away. Thank God. I thank God for that. Ugh.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. A couple of mistakes from both of us.
Thank you. That was great. Can I just one follow-up question from what
Yes, yeah.
Noor said? So during that time of the Sufi, as Mushtaq says, Sufi museum, that's cool. That's a cool line right there. How was the reconciliation with the sexual identity within that community? Because that's something that I know I've shared with you.
Yeah.
Being a bisexual man from Islam, practicing Sufi, it's like any group I go into, they're like, no, you can't do this, you can't do it, so it's like, how is that reconciliation for you?
So I think early on, I kind of was able to hold my own space with that. When I was in school, as in college, I took a Sufism class and we had to, I think the assignment was to somehow engage with Sufi poetry. And at that time, I was just still pining for my first love, who happened to be a girl around my own age, who I had met in my teens and had been just, years of back and forth between us and just things not working out. But she was my muse for that poetry. She gave me a sense of having a sense of love and devotion and surrender to something that was transcendent. And we often see in this poetry of love written by Sufis that there is this Layla Majnun thing where Majnun's just chasing after Layla, but everything she touches, everything that she's been close to, or places she's been, objects that have her scent on them, I was able to kind of channel it that way and use this fascination with this girl who really was not a good fit for me in the end as a way to get a taste of that love for the divine and from the divine, in that sense of spiritual connection that comes from being a devotee. I did not worship the girl, but I understood that it was a metaphor. And that carried me through, because I knew that I was not alone in having had that experience and using it as inspiration, because many poets of the past have done the same. So even when there were times where I felt like it was something that I kind of needed to protect for my own security and to be accepted in a community, I managed to not lose heart, I guess. And even if people were to say things like, oh, that's, people who are attracted to folks of the same sex aren't natural, or they're doing something that's haram, forbidden, I had this sense that as humble as I knew I should be in my inexperience, I knew something they didn't. And it was their loss that they did not understand that. So that's
Yeah.
basically how I would answer that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Osama.
I've got one for Noor, which
Go
is,
for
did you have to work to understand that a lot of people are just not fascinated by this thing that's central to you?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a thing that I experienced, and I didn't really take it personally because I was used to being like that. I was used to being a weirdo. So I think really the complex there becomes don't feel special because you like this thing you like, for me,
Mhm.
as opposed to why doesn't everybody like this thing that I like? I don't expect people to. So I've
Yeah, you
never
learned
really,
that fairly early on.
yeah, but I've never been a proselytizer for anything that I like to any strong degree. Yeah.
Yeah, I lucked out with that because my teachers have always been, you want to be a Sufi? What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? Be anything else. Be anything other than a Sufi. The Zen guys, they have nice robes. The Hindus, they have these beautiful statues. All we got is work. Don't do this.
No one ever had that conversation with me.
Yeah,
Except maybe a little bit Sheikh did,
yeah,
but he already knew that I was all in, so he didn't push me too
Yeah.
much. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I hope we answered your question, Nancy.
You did. Maybe it's because the thing that fascinates me is more ordinary, which is the body work range of stuff.
Yeah.
Where I just assumed, of course, everybody else would be interested, and no, they aren't.
No.
It is very cool stuff though. There is that. So
Yeah.
again,
yeah. But there's an old saying from a wise old dervish, which is, if you want to empty a room of spiritual people, tell them that they're going to have to break a sweat.
oh no.
Yeah.
God no, please.
I'd probably leave myself at that point, but
Honesty, excellent. Yes. All right. I want to make sure we get James because we skipped over him.
Yeah.
But thank you, Nancy. That was a good question.
well,
Lay it on us,
Okay.
James.
Well, it's something you've alluded to in the past, and it's a general area I'm concerned with. Whole business of, cults, cult leaders, da 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 da. How do you avoid that temptation? Because I imagine you must have had the opportunity at some phase. There must be people who have come to you at some point who regard you uncritically. How do you avoid, or what would be the warning signs in you that the temptation to put yourself in that position?
I'm pretty sure that everyone will be tempted by that.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of the story about Gurdjieff coming to the conclusion that he needed to sacrifice something to stay awake. Do you know that story?
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I'm
He
going to
sacrificed a city of some sort. He gave up on
he sacrificed his hypnotic abilities
that. Yeah.
because they made his life easy.
Mm.
And he needed his life to be a bit harder. So he gave that up. And by giving it up, he had to work harder in every other way. So we all have to do a little bit of that. I mean, I have bad examples in my life. Two very close friends literally became cult leaders.
Yes, you'd said that before.
Yeah. And I watched it happen and it was horrifying. And it's like, and with this one guy, I had known him for some years, and just all of a sudden something's flipped in his head, and he had to be, the ultimate source of all knowledge. And it's like, I knew this guy. He was not the ultimate source of all knowledge. He was good at what he did. he was exceptionally good at what he did, but all of a sudden he had to be the spiritual source of all knowledge, and it wrecked him. And so they say a good Sufi learns from the mistakes of others. And so I've had those examples in my life to where, and this is why I am so adamant about, you can't do this as if it were a cult, why the whole hierarchical thing has to die, why we have to go, we are not your leaders. We are not the source of all knowledge. We're smart. We know things, and we're your friends, and we're all in this together. This is the new way. It's not just this is the way. This is the new way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I have not, I have encountered that, but only minimally. And it's usually someone putting me on a pedestal in a
You look nice on a pedestal.
in a different sort of way. Like I don't think people sit there and assume that I am the end all be all source of knowledge. I don't think we're at that point with me yet. On the other hand, I have experienced it with people trying to put me on a pedestal in other ways, and me having to create certain kinds of boundaries in place that allow us to relate on an even keel, as opposed to me being able to manipulate them emotionally or sexually or whatever, and having to be very disciplined in myself about making sure that they understand where I stand and why I stand there, so that they're not getting an impression of me leading them on or me taking advantage of some kind of attachment they might have to me in order to manipulate them into giving me things that are not mine to take. Whether that's, their money or their heart or whatever it might be.
But you've had the clarity to see that at the time. You've had the clarity to acknowledge that. Not too sure where I'm going with this. Just looking back in my own life, more in my personal life, where this is where I failed badly as a person, where I've kind of realized that's going on. Someone's put me on a pedestal, and I've been too self-indulgent, really wanting their good opinion of me, and I've fed into it. And sort of, it's not really that big a deal, and it turned out to be a very big deal for stuff, reasons I'm not going to go into now, but and I know in my case it was just feeling so low at the time that I wanted that.
Yeah. This is why Sufis embrace the way of blame. Because if you truly embrace the way of blame, you can't let yourself be put on a pedestal. You have to actually act to keep yourself off the damn pedestal. It's like, oh, you think I'm cool? Let me show you what a jerk I really am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My failure to do that cost me repeatedly until this message started to sink in.
Yeah.
Where I am with it now remains to be seen. Thank you.
Thank you for asking that. And I think that for me as well, that was something I learned through trial and error. Having had hurt people and realizing if I'm committed to the path that I'm on, I have to sacrifice that.
Yes.
Whatever power I may have in that way, I have to, if I use it at all, use it for good, as opposed to just for my own ends.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And it's ever so tempting.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, we we live in a very strange way where I'd like to say God pays our salary. And that means that we have to wait for the check to come.
Okay.
And that's a little nerve-wracking sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Mhm.
And I know for me, it would be so easy to convince people to give me money.
I mean,
Right.
we have
Yeah,
tools we could
yeah.
use to that end.
And I absolutely refuse to do it because that does not end well.
Hmm.
That ends badly no matter what you do. So yeah, we both have that particular karamat. And
And yet, a lot of people would say you should use it. Why are you not doing that?
yeah,
I mean, it's not like you couldn't use the help, or however they might phrase it in a capitalist society where it's seen like get what you can get.
yeah. And the answer is Allah pays our salary. And we must be content with that.
Yeah.
So that's, and that's how you counter that. I mean, it would be easy to be like every other idiot on YouTube who every day is asking for money for this or that or the other thing. But I take I take the example of the prophet who would never accept charity. Not even once. He would accept a gift, but never charity. He never had this expectation of people having to support him.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
there's a fine line though, where
Yeah.
we have to check our pride as well.
Yeah.
So there's two sides to that coin, you know?
Yeah. And that means when Allah sends the paycheck, we are grateful.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. That's answered my question. Thank you.
Good.
Great.
And Frank is here. Yay, Frank is
Yay.
here. We have your question. It's like the first of the written questions that we were
Yeah.
going to ask.
So Yusuf has a question, and I'm sure it was in relation to something we said previously. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, give us some context here.
Yeah, it was just in relation to the, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. I was just in relation to the previous question that was asked about, basically I was saying that the nature of the environment changed, that this type of group where it's less likely to form into a cult if it's,
Oh, no.
or
no,
as the
actually
tradition. I
more
mean, it can still
likely.
happen.
Yeah, it's more likely to form into a cult now. The internet makes it easy to create cults. You look at some of the big cults out there right now. What's her name?
Teal Swan?
Yeah, like her.
Yeah,
Example?
She would have never been able to be a cult leader in the way she is today.
that's pretty true.
Yeah. So, and there are literally thousands of people trying to go in that direction.
Again, it's like, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. That
Yeah.
looks appealing. That's what we should be doing. And
Yeah.
our gut check says absolutely not, actually.
Yeah. So the environment is actually more conducive to the creation of cults than ever before.
Yeah, a lot more people that can easily follow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess it is interesting because there are cases where it doesn't feel, well, cult, like the word cult is a very loose term. It's like also the term of like culture, right? Like that's where, so there's a
it's-
certain aspect of you're creating
a manipulative cults or toxic cults,
yeah,
because there are cults out there that are all very nice people
yeah.
and they aren't hurting anybody. They're just weird.
All the really big ones started out as what today we'd call, but it is strange. Yeah, I guess I'm always curious about what it's like in this day and age, and how there's also like a sort of something I've been curious about is there's this sort of like wisdom commons. I've heard that term thrown around, where it's like there is this greater community on the internet of awakening, or on the world that is happening because of the internet. And so there's like smaller circles, but there's also this kind of
I don't
coherent,
think that's
bigger
accurate.
circle. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we buy into that
Yeah, not at all.
particular value or belief.
Yeah.
I could say it's a belief. Yeah.
Yes, something I figured out a long time ago was that most people who talk about things like awakening don't want to be awake. They just want to have nicer dreams.
They like the fantasy idea
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, so these are the guys who, they're tapping into the Akashic records and looking at their past lives and doing all of this stuff that totally distracts them from the present moment.
That's totally
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, and that's a great way to create a cult. Let me tell you all, it's going to be really easy. We're going to look at your past lives and we're going to find out what was wrong, what went wrong that you can fix today in this life. But you'll have these stories to tell about how you were, Yusuf, you were the emperor of Atlantis in your past life.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Why didn't anyone ever shovel shit in their past life? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's a question I've had for decades. It's like, where is the guy who had a past life as a goat herd?
Well,
You know?
see, I think people are trying to delve into that now because they think that there's something more pure in that. Like, and that is a whole new realm of the same pattern, just happening in a different way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
So
we don't need to delve too far down that rabbit hole, but that was a good question, Yusuf. So thank you. Did we answer it well enough? Excellent.
yeah, and James points out about the Benito. That's the guy who screwed over all those women.
And Tina, well, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever his name is.
Bento box.
That's how the
Yeah,
what is
a little bit culty. Yeah,
Yeah, that's their nickname for him.
yeah, yeah, and that's a totally internet-driven cult. And the same with the guy who just got arrested in Poland or wherever it was,
Oh, I'm not
Czechoslovakia.
Familiar with the
Yeah. I don't remember his name. Ex-kickboxer.
you know the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, internet is great for cults. Okay. Let's look at Frank's question.
Frank, did you have a question?
Yeah,
or you
it's right
just-
here.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yes.
He got his question
you,
in
Frank.
early. Yes.
Okay. So you want to read it?
Frank asks, if there is an energetic transference during a counseling session, generally speaking, what are the considerations or consequences? Thank you. I was praying for a way to ask, and well, thank you.
Yeah. I'm glad to have an opportunity to follow up on that.
Yeah. The answer is sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And you have to be careful with that. The considerations and consequences are, let me get the picture back so I can see. That sort of thing can be addictive. We're having something and we call it the transmission of baraka or shaktipat or any of this kind of thing.
What would that be in English for those who don't know?
I'm trying to think of the English word. It's like,
Blessing.
yeah, you give the guy the juju.
The juju.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And it raises their energy up. Sometimes a student will need to have their energy raised so that they can do work that has been hard for them. And they will not realize that that was just a temporary thing and they'll want more. And this is getting back to the cult thing. This is one of the ways that culty teachers hook their students and keep them, because the moment you think that you have to get your baraka from me, you have to follow me.
Yeah. The teacher becomes like the battery the resource that everyone needs to return to or perceives that they need to return to, whether that's something that they're projecting onto the teacher or the teacher is actually genuinely actively encouraging to have happen.
So as the person who might be doing that, I have to at all times keep in my consciousness and understanding that any energy that is given to them does not come from me. It can only come from the divine reality. It can only come from the truth.
Yeah.
I'm not even a middleman.
Yeah. Nancy puts it this way: the teacher becomes the pusher
Yeah.
of drugs, the drug being this need for spiritual energizing, however we want to imagine or frame that.
Yeah. So considerations from my end is that I have to be very cautious if I do that with somebody because of its addictive nature.
Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, at this stage, it tends to be a sense of intimacy that people feel with me. They want to maintain that and stay close in that way. And I have to.
Is that what happened?
Whoops. There needs to be that sense of, we are building something together rather than it coming from me. And we are creating that energy together. We are sharing in that. So we both benefit. And as you say, ultimately, that doesn't come from us, but it comes through us.
Yeah, or around us, or
Yeah.
we send the memo and it gets there.
Yep. Yeah.
Is that a decent answer, Frank?
Well, yes, in the sense if that's what you're trying to accomplish, but I'm more concerned about, let's say that it's inevitable that occurs, and once it occurs, you want to ensure that the energy is put in the right place. So I guess I have to be more precise.
Please,
So
we welcome that. Yeah.
I currently I am a vet, and I work with recovering vets, and we work in a recovering community that has quite a few problems with addiction and fear and a number of other things. Trust, of course, is always the biggest. And once that's established, then I find that it's easier to talk with people. They're more open with me, but then they tend not to want to share that trust with anybody else. And so I don't want the responsibility, even though I want to be part of, but I want to make sure that there's a way to not be in that limelight, to make sure that they're receiving something that they can use in the future, no matter who is there, a strength that they can, a power that they can use. So I guess I understand what you're saying, but it's really, I need to be on the other end of that.
Yeah.
How to make sure that they're willing to make the step, that now they sense what they can get. Now do something. Let me encourage you. What can I do to encourage them other than be the example?
Remind them of where it comes from, because it doesn't come from you.
No, it doesn't.
It is coming from the truth. And that's something my teacher used to say, never point at yourself, always point at God. And it's a little bit like that. But and also you're doing incredibly hard work, man. There are no easy answers for what you're dealing with.
Well, thank you for your help. I really I get a lot out of your channel, so thank you.
Yeah, well, I would be pleased if you considered us a resource.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay. So, any more questions from our live audience before we get back to reading them off of the, it's not even a piece of paper, before we look at the electrons?
Shuri.
Well, I've got a few, but I didn't get to type them out. Why was it important to change your names?
Why was it important to change our names? I think we both have different stories.
So you go
there.
first.
Okay, so I honestly, my name is not my Sufi name. So the name my parents gave me is Kyle, and I was named after my mom's sister who died as a toddler. So that's the story there. So that name was difficult for me growing up because here in the States, I don't know about elsewhere, it is pretty strongly considered a male gendered name. And for most of my life, I have kind of seen myself as being pretty highly feminine or striving to be highly feminine. So it really chafed for me. And it was something I resented and felt like, why the hell did you name me this? It took me until adulthood to be able to value that name. So I just want to hold space for the name Kyle and share that it is not something that I reject or feel that I want to erase and never use again. My friends and family go by that name. I answer to it regularly. Noor, on the other hand, is also my name, but it was a name given to me by friends. And that was during a time where I was not yet a Sufi. So although it is a name that is familiar to those who speak Arabic or Hindi or Farsi, it is a name that I kind of adopted because I felt that it brought another aspect of me to the fore. So both are equally valid to me. And I find that it allows me to connect with people in Muslim contexts more easily because it is a name that is familiar, and its meaning, light, is something that I find I want to encourage in myself. And I do think that names do have that sense of invoking, I guess we could say, if the meaning is known and the meaning is significant. So that's why I use Noor here.
Yeah. Now, my name was also given by friends. Years and years and years ago, I've used Mushtaq much longer than I used my Anglo name. I started using Mushtaq in my early 20s, and that was a long time ago. So 20 years of being stuck with, well, my Anglo name has never meant anything to me. Mushtaq is, it speaks to certain parts of my character.
Yeah.
The crazy parts.
The crazy parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have a Sufi name that my teacher gave me that nobody ever talks about because I don't usually use it. Or if I did, you'd never know.
Yeah. I had a friend's mother. She wanted to bestow, like, when I became an official convert with the piece of paper and everything at the mosque.
You got a piece of paper?
I did.
I don't got a piece of paper.
It's in a file in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, she was like, it would be an honor if you would take the name Noor as-Salam, which is like light of peace, but it's a real mouthful. So I feel like Noor is just less.
Noor is good. And you
Yeah.
are just a bundle of light.
Yeah, not always at peace though. So yeah, I think we just feel that they bring out aspects of our personalities that we want to enhance and bring forth. But as far as like needing to change a name, I don't think that's something either of us is ascribed to as Sufis.
No.
There is a tradition in Islam of people taking on like Arabic names and stuff, but I feel actually that that's less the case now, as long as the name doesn't I don't know, have some kind of connotations of I guess we could say unwholesomeness, and that kind of is a matter of personal taste to some extent.
Yeah.
So
And then there's the idea that Gurdjieff said there are three things that keep you from realizing that you are not a single eye. One of them is that all of your different eyes have the same name. Every eye that you have, every sub-personality that you have, Cherie, is named Cherie. And you have one body. So all of the different eyes feel the body sensations, which is why it's so important to do the kind of work that you do that opens up new sensations in the body. And the last is that everybody has a set of core habits that each of the eyes maintains. So in spiritual traditions, changing your name is breaking the identification with each of every part of you being Cherie. So there's that.
yeah, it's a strategy, I guess we could say, in a more practical sense. But some people also feel that it carries a sense of
Yeah.
quote unquote spiritual significance, and I say that unjudgmentally.
Yeah.
You know, you got to do what works.
Thinking
for you.
about for me, before 9/11, I was pretty indifferent on which name I used, my Sufi name or my white people's name. After 9/11, I started exclusively using my Muslim name because fuck them motherfuckers.
Sticking it to the man. Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yes. And would you like another one?
Sure.
What aspect or habit of yourself is the hardest to change?
You go first.
No. No.
Okay, so maybe that's one of them. This habit of shrinking to the shadows of mine. And that's a chronic problem that I have that I find really hard to shake. And I think that that is one of the things that really hobbles me, to, for lack of a better word. Like I think that there's definitely a place for humility and making yourself small in the sense of not taking up space that isn't yours to take up. But I have a problem of like even falling short of that. So I need to continue to work on that. It's very sticky though. It's a sticky habit to want to just be like, I don't know, I'll just mentally and physically and emotionally check out and not invest myself and be brave and all that stuff. Because it feels safer, but it's not helpful to me or any of my students, really. So, yeah.
Yeah. For me, I do not suffer fools easily.
He's a little scary in that way.
Yeah. I really struggle with this because if somebody is acting like an idiot, my first reaction is to just eviscerate them, to just rip them a new one. And when I was younger, I would just flat out do that. And yeah, I actually wrote something some years ago, which was, I've discovered that no matter how hard or how often you punch people in the face, it doesn't seem to change their mind. And, I try and bear that in mind. So I still, to this day, it's like some dude asked me an anti-vaxxer question on the forum. And it's like, I look at that and I go, dude, you are a conspiracy theorist. You have no ability to think critically yourself. And why are you asking me this? Why are you making these assumptions that are untrue? Only I would not have said it that nicely. It would have started with, "Dear idiot."
I mean, that's like a key word for us, right?
Yeah,
We know that this is coming when the word idiot is involved.
yeah. And it's bad, and it's a habit, and it is something that I don't struggle with it daily anymore, but I at least struggle with it monthly.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it comes out of, the whole enneagrammatic fixation thing. It's a fixation of personality. I'm an anger type, and I have to work consciously to make sure that that never takes over, because the idiots go away with their feelings hurt.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm teasing.
Yeah.
And it's totally counterproductive, because like I said, you can hit people forever.
Yeah, it's a good thing that I live in Sydney and you're in California.
No, he would be nice to you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're on my favorite people list. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Phew. Whew. More work is necessary. Yeah. That's the thing with the fixations, isn't it? That when once we know them, we know where our tripwires are.
Yeah.
And we don't activate them. Just yet we still do. We still do. There is a delicious temptation to indulge them from time to time.
Yeah, and it's never good. It's never good. It never turns out well. I mean, yes, you can win. I can win an argument against the anti-vaxxer guy. That's not hard, but it doesn't change him. It might make him more stuck in his position. And so I have to practice kindness.
The struggle is
real. Yes.
Okay. In saying that, my other question is, what misconceptions about Sufism drive you crazy?
Oh.
Oh man, that's a long list. There is the idea that Sufis are all these guys who just, we wear the turbans, and we always dress like 19th century Turks and tell everybody it's Sunnah.
Sunnah being like, oh, it's
that's
tradition.
What the Prophet did.
Yeah.
Prophet never ever dressed like a 19th century Turk. But the mechanical virtue signaling.
Say more about that.
Yeah. So every time you mention the name of the Prophet, you have to wish peace and blessings upon him and his family and his friends, and it's just one long word.
Every time.
Every time.
Every sentence.
Yeah, every time you use the word, every time you say Muhammad, you say Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Better if you say it in Arabic, even if you don't understand Arabic, because the sounds are magical. And it drives me nuts because there is no consciousness in it. I am happy to wish peace upon the Prophet, but if I do, I want to do it with full consciousness and awareness, not just have some habit come out of my mouth.
Full feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's one of the things. And oh yes, it's all about love.
Oh, okay. That was going to be mine.
Yeah, you take that one.
Okay, so I have encountered this from the beginning, and I was sort of a rebellious teenager. When I was younger, in my early teens, I would never swear. It was like total off limits thing to do, just because I had internalized the super ego, the parent who's wagging the finger and like, I have to be a good girl. So I did like a 180 entirely in my late teens and early 20s. And so I was really attracted to the Sufi path in terms of the the passion involved in it. That's how I perceive Sufism anyways. But when it came to the soft, fluffy, like everything is love, God is love, it's not that I don't believe that that is true. I just don't think that's all that God is. And I feel very strongly that limiting the divine reality only to softness and cuddles and love and compassion and all of the nice, comfortable, comforting things is to do a disservice not only to the divine reality, which is so much bigger than anything we could ascribe to it, but also to ourselves. There's so much more to us than just becoming soft, fluffy doormats that are so eager to be steamrolled into acquiescence. I feel like we have to be able to be firm and to be strong and resilient and outspoken and to say the bad words from time to time, especially when they get our point
Damn
across. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's always irritated me that to be a Sufi for many people seems to mean everything is so heart-centered, meaning it's all about emotion, it's all about feelings. I'm a very emotion-oriented person myself, but I'm very clear that that is not all that I am. And it would irritate me to no end to be expected to simplify myself down to that.
Yeah. And then there are all of the people who want to separate Sufism from Islam. You know, they quote some passage by Rumi about how his religion is love, right? Rumi was a devout Muslim his entire life. He was a qadi. He could offer judgment, and he never stopped being that. People don't understand it. It's comfortable for them to think, oh, Sufism is this universal thing. But Sufism comes out of Islam. It comes out of that milieu. That's what shaped it, informed it, and gave it its fragrance. It's fragrance. And if they, you know, that's the truth. You don't have to be a Muslim, right? But it's important to remember where it comes from.
Okay, so
yeah.
You don't want Sufism removed from Islam and you don't want Islam removed from Sufism.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, that's fair.
Without making people be Muslims.
Right.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
don't need to be Muslims.
We're super adamant about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There is no religious test in the nine-sided circle.
right. But it's nice to be literate, you know, to be
Yeah.
knowledgeable. And we do think that's important. So
Yeah,
we try to support that.
And we talk about it all the time, because if you can't stand hearing the name Allah, this is not the right place for you.
Yeah. Right. I have one more.
Go for it.
The sexism.
Oh,
The sexism in Sufism. I need to call that out because it is very apparent to me that it is an ongoing thing that has definitely not been cured and purged from the system. It is ever present, drives me up the wall constantly. But that is my test, right? That is my grain of sand inside the mollusk that I'm trying to
that you bear.
that I'm trying to make a pearl out of, and it is work. Yes.
Yeah, I'd have to go with you on that.
Yeah. And it ties together with my previous one because it is seen that like women in Islam generally, but also in Sufism specifically, women are supposed to embody the softness, the love, and be like the mothers of everyone, I guess we could say. And the stereotype embodied in that is to be eternally and endlessly nurturing and not using your brain and never pushing back, but just to be, you know, a soft pillow for people. And That is not something I encourage in terms of that being a default state of being.
Yeah. And a woman's job is not to be in the kitchen making the tea and dinner for the men who are out.
God, I hate that so much.
Yeah, it's not the case.
And that makes me a bad Muslim in some ways.
According to some people.
But
Yeah,
I
but
accept
you're
that.
bad in the best way.
I love you. All right. Is that a good answer? Those good answers? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Frank said, I appreciate quote unquote openness without limitation too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Ah. Anybody else? Nancy, did you have another one?
I'm just trying to remember. I'll get back to you.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we got a couple more questions to read.
Okay. Back to the list.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they're all sort of interrelated though.
Yeah. Okay. Alicia Tharini.
Tariani?
Tariani.
Tariani?
Yeah, let me mispronounce your name
Sorry
in
about
3 or 4 different ways. Has asked a couple of questions and she's been waiting patiently for the answers. The first is, since Beelzebub's tales are to be taken allegorically, what do you think are the actual references in the following cases?
So before you get into that,
Yes.
for those who don't know, Beelzebub's Tales is
It's a book written by Gurdjieff.
it's kind of framed as a fiction way of
Sort of, yeah.
pitching his teachings, I guess.
And I have to answer this
Yeah,
because she's never read the books and
I'm working on it, getting there.
don't work too hard.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think the actual references are in the following cases? Giant ants on the moon digging tunnels to make the atmosphere more stable. I think that that was spoken in a time where people had no understanding of what was really going on in the solar system.
Yeah,
And with a lot of this stuff, I don't even care. Ravens on Saturn, who cares about ravens on Saturn?
well, I mean, do you want to at least read it? So
Yeah. There are ravens on Saturn. One particular very intelligent raven, yeah, helped Beelzebub build a telescope that could view the entire solar system. The only thing I can say about that is I like ravens. Ravens are smart. Ravens are fun to hang out with. Beelzebub probably had a great time with them. And the famous question, did we come from apes, is answered by Beelzebub as the fact is that neither are your favorites descended from apes, nor are apes descended from them. That is actually not metaphor, that is true. We are not descended from apes. We are descended from a line of hominids that are related to apes. Or you could say that, it's like chimpanzees are not descended from gorillas. Gorillas are not descended from gibbons. We are all descendants of a group of anthropoids, hominids, and so we're not descended from apes.
we share a distant
Yeah, we share
ancestor.
a common ancestor. Apes went one way, we went another way. And as for the rest of it, I have no idea what that means. And to me, it's just noise. That's how I experience a lot of Beelzebub tales, because Beelzebub tales was not written for me. It wasn't written for Noor. It was written for a bunch of stuck-up Russians and pompous Englishmen and Frenchmen who like to twirl their mustaches in the 19th and early 20th centuries. So those stories have to do with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So get out of it what you can get out of it. But I would suggest not getting too stuck on the details.
Now, Alicia has a second question, which I may be able to answer a little bit better. I have another question. Would you please share something regarding, and this is point of return. I recently came across it in search of miraculous and don't completely get it.
Is that by Ouspensky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could discuss, take up the question for Sunday Talk, it would be a great help for me. Many, many thanks. I would have to look that up specifically. When I see that, I think of point of no return, which is the point in a process where you cannot go back successfully. And the attempt to go back or allowing the process to fail after that point is actually, it creates greater inertia in you.
And that's related to our discussions on the Enneagram of process.
Yeah.
So if you're curious about that, we've done videos on that in our Enneagram playlist on our YouTube channel. Okay, so yeah, maybe that's something we go
Yeah.
through a little bit of.
So, Alicia, I am going to look more deeply into that. It's been a while since I've read In Search of Miraculous, and I'm going to dig up that reference and see if I'm talking about the right thing or barking up the wrong tree. And we'll do a whole thing on it because it's an important,
Inshallah. Yeah.
inshallah. It's always inshallah.
God willing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then our last question on the list.
Oh, do we want to check in with people, or you want
let's
to go
get,
straight?
get this done, and then
Okay.
we can get on. Alka asks, I would love to ask you, what does God mean to you? So you want to take that before I do?
Okay. I mean, I kind of talk about this pretty frequently.
Yeah.
You know, when I was young, I was really obsessed with Star Wars. So my first real way of grasping what we call God, as soon as I started to grow out from under the child understanding of God as a sky parent and looking down on me, watching everything I do, looking to answer my prayers immediately with cookies and ice cream and toys and that kind of thing. Once I became more sophisticated in my understanding from there, I felt really obsessed with this idea of the Force in Star Wars, because I felt like that hit home for me somehow. As soon as I was able to, you know, enter, let's say, into pre-puberty, where I'm starting to have my own ideas about how the world works. And as I understood it, it was kind of a sense of, I guess we could say, panentheism, right? Where everything, God is in everything. The Force is in everything. It makes everything animate. It is what gives everything its form, its shape, its sense of being. And as I grew from there, I think that I was satisfied with that for quite a while. And then in my early 20s, I had this utterly earth-shaking experience of realizing I did not have full understanding of what the divine reality is. And it was like sort of a spontaneous, oddly psychedelic experience in which I just started sobbing with the sense of being humbled. I know we've used the word humiliated before, in the sense of realizing, oh my gosh, there's something bigger than I am that is the truth. To be super huge about it. And like it was shattering. It was just like, oh my God, what have I done, almost? But not in a way that I was beating myself up, more in like, oh my gosh, how can I learn more now? How can I make amends for my obliviousness? And so my understanding of God now is absolutely not limited just to what is seen, but includes what is unseen, includes what I know and what I don't know, and what feels real to me and what I can only speculate about. And I realize that I will never know the whole truth. And yet I feel a sense of trust that there is a truth, if that makes sense. And so I guess that's what God is to me, all of that together. I mean, I definitely experience still this sense of panentheism, that God is in everything. But as we've talked about, everything is manifesting in God,
Yeah.
we should say.
Yeah, what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my understanding has certainly developed over time and will continue to, I'm sure.
Yeah, I pretty much the same sort of thing. You know, I cannot describe what God is because it's too big.
Mhm.
I know what it isn't. God is not some grumpy old guy sitting in the clouds being pissed off at us because we have failed to meet his expectations. You know,
Yeah,
it's
that
just,
definitely doesn't land for me.
no. For me, God is my experience of God is that God is that which has manifested the universe, but is beyond any manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yep. So hopefully that answers Alka's question.
Yeah, or at least gives her a fun bit of confusion. All right, let's have some more questions, or not.
Well, I've got a small one.
Okay.
Possibly one more thing to add to the list of annoying things that people get wrong about Sufism, which
Okay.
is the thing in Idris Shah, where the idea is that Sufism is the people with good sense in all religions.
Yeah, Idris Shah was a cult leader, you know, and whatever he had to say about Sufism, I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
But do other people pick that up and it's another way of getting things wrong?
Yeah, and it is getting things wrong. You know, Shaw did the same thing that like the modern Rosicrucians do, which is everybody who was interesting is a Rosicrucian.
Just
And,
like,
yeah, they
speaking
were
about-
all members of our particular fan club, and Shaw did the same thing.
I mean, that's a bit presumptuous, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if they don't want to be in your club?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's stuff that can be salvaged from the corpus of Idris Shah, but I also think it's
Yeah, he
important
collected good stories.
yeah.
And then he wrote pure bullshit under a dozen pseudonyms.
Right. So
Yeah, the guy wrote books under different names praising himself.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, don't get me on Idris Shah, because that goes
Right.
back to that thing about I get pissed off at stupid people.
He's in it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I did not mean to tempt you.
yeah.
Temptations.
And now all of the Idris Shah fans are going to hear me say this, and they're going to get on the comments and tell me that I'm a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad person. And
I tried to temper it for
Yeah.
you.
fuck that.
All right. Thanks, Nancy. James, did you have another question?
Oh, I was just thinking, talking about Idris Shah. If I had read The People of the Secret when I was like 15 or 16, I would have lapped it up with so much desperate enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel you.
It's
Same.
so exotic. In a crude kindergarten way, inspiring. Even for someone who's 15 or 16 or yeah. I can understand the attraction. Foolish though it is.
Oh yeah, I was immune to Idris Shah because I had already read Tuesday Love Sang Rampa's books.
Ah,
And I mean, that I read his first book, The Third Eye, and it was like, and I was 14 when I read it. And it's like, wow, this is so cool. And then I read a couple of his other books and went, wait a minute. This guy's a complete nutcase. And Shaw wrote in the same pattern.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps I'm lucky. I didn't really encounter any of this stuff until my late teens, early 20s. I
Yeah.
just didn't have that environment around me.
Yeah. So my impression of Shaw was, oh, this is the Tuesday long Lobsang Rampa of Sufism. Like I said, I have this is feeding my
In court. Yes. All right. Cool. Thanks, James.
Okay.
Yeah, who else? Who haven't we heard
Chris
from?
is here and
Chris.
he's about to speak.
Ooh, pick me.
Yes, Chris.
Chris.
Yay. Sorry, I'm not on camera. I'm driving and I probably shouldn't be multitasking, but I am. So, and I'm at a stoplight, so this is good.
Okay.
I'm curious about the lineage of the nine-sided circle, especially working backwards from present day.
Okay. The lineage of the nine-sided circle is we are of the Yasevi Tariqa. The Yasevi are a branch of the Khajagan, which were emerged a bit over 1,000 years ago in Central Asia around Bukhara with a fellow by the name of Yusuf Hamadani, who was a Persian. And the lineage is traced back from him through a bunch of important teachers, all the way back to Muhammad. And that's us.
So more recently, because he asked in recent times, I am the end of the line right now.
Yep. But we are fluffing up some people to yeah. So then I am the person who was sent out by my teachers to do crazy shit in the world. And I'm actually writing out our entire silsila right now because we need to have it done. There's a bunch of names that you wouldn't recognize. Yeah, they're all like Daoud Atta, and traces back. God, it's I got to count how many generations. It's a lot of generations. Yeah. And
just about, as far as the record goes, just about all men, except for, or is it pretty much all men?
In the official silsila, it's all men. Yeah.
Yep. So that goes back to what I was saying about, one of the things that frustrates me is being the outlier and struggling with that.
Yeah. And it is my opinion that it is time for all men to shut the fuck up. Because now it's all men who were heads of their particular line. I am not the head of the Yasevi. I am, if I'm lucky, I'm the big toenail of the Yasevi.
Yeah, we have cousins abroad that we don't know who are carrying on the lineage in their own threads. Yeah,
but the present head of the Yasevi is in Uzbekistan. And not too much can be said about him at the moment. And unfortunately, the line that I come through, where that big earthquake was in Turkey? They were in the middle of it, and I don't even know which ones of them.
Oh, dang!
Right now.
Yeah, it's pretty unsettling.
Yeah, so we're just waiting to hear from people, and hopefully they're all doing fine. But you never know.
Yep.
So I'm that's kind of a vague answer, but that's basically the answer. And Noor is the next head of our particular branch. And right now she is my Khalifa, which means my representative. And we are actively training other people to be Khalifas as well. This is the way we are doing it is very non-hierarchical though. So every Khalifa creates their own branch. But they're all going to answer to her because she's tough.
Yeah, it's quite a responsibility, but it is what has fallen into my lap, or what has been, I don't know how we want to phrase that, but
you got picked.
I got
out of the
picked.
hat.
I went, pick me, Chris, and they picked me. So
Well, they are very wise.
I have had some interesting experiences of being kind of pressured into acceptance, shall we say. Feeling afraid to say yes to the whole thing, but feeling that our, as I call them, our spiritual ancestors being like, this is yours. It's time to take it. So, I mean, it is something that I consented to, but it is also something that I probably would not have felt was mine to take without being invited to it.
Yeah. And the nine-sided circle is a new thing because we are, we don't follow the exact same methodologies as the tradition that's been handed down to us. We follow all of the tradition that's been handed down to us, but we've made it modern. We've made it more inclusive.
Some people would take
Yeah.
issue with that.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to take issue with that. They're going to be going, "What are you doing hanging out with all these kafir?" And it's like,
Unbelievers.
yeah, infidels.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as I can tell, all of you guys are believers. You know, whether you call yourself Muslims or anything else. I don't even care what you believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, whereas Muslims will feel very comfortable with us if they're a little weird, so will everybody else.
Yep.
And that makes us different than every other group.
Yeah, where you kind of have to, accepting Islam, quote unquote, is sort of part and parcel with becoming part of the community in many cases.
And this is when this tradition was created in the way that it was, everybody was involved. There were Christians, there were Jews, there were Zoroastrians, there were Buddhists, there were shamanists, and they were all working together.
Yep.
And so we're doing something like that. We're creating a Sufi path for the 21st century that will hopefully mitigate some of the insanity that is hitting the world.
Yeah, and it's not a buffet in the sense of anything goes. We have a pretty clear vision of what
we understand what goes and what doesn't go.
Yeah.
Like I said, we do not deviate from the core tradition. It's just that we've added some fluff with Gurdjieff and such to make the language more accessible.
Yep. Fluff.
Well, there's a lot of wisdom in having a group that you say, okay, go over there and be weird and, you know, see if you figure something out. So I'm proud to be part of the group that's being a little weird here. So thank you. And thanks for the answer.
The rest of us, man.
Ha 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 ha.
Yeah. And we're happy to have you, Chris.
Yeah. You do good things. We like that.
Yeah.
We are
It is
pleased.
an honor.
Yeah.
It is an honor.
Awesome.
All right.
Osama.
Yeah. Just a little thought about what you just said about the word. Like, you know, some people would say like, "Oh, what are you doing hanging out with a bunch of kafirs?" Or that's translated 99 times 99% into unbelievers.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that the word kafar is to cover something up. It's actually used, the word is used in agriculture.
Mm.
So
Uh-huh.
when you cover the seed when you put the seed into the ground, you would say kafar, which is to cover the seed. Another way it's used in when, let's say I don't fast for a day, and during Ramadan, and after Ramadan, I would do a kafara, which is to cover the day that I didn't fast. So in a sense, the way that I understand the word kafir as someone who covers up the truth. And that can be a general.
Yeah, that's pretty brilliant.
That can be in a general sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that kind of reminds me of what I was saying previously about my realization, not in a self-punishing sort of way, but I had been oblivious to the truth, and suddenly that obliviousness had been revealed to me, even if I didn't fully understand. And in that moment, I guess we could say I became a quote unquote believer, even if I didn't believe necessarily any kind of orthodox thing. Yeah. So I think
Exactly.
you've given us a beautiful way to interpret this word that is less damaging and gets more clearly at, I guess, what motivates us is kind of calling people to the truth as we see it, which is being awake is the truth. It's a
Yeah.
way of manifesting the truth.
Yeah. And we take a lot of inspiration from the Prophet Isa, who did not hang out with the elite and the Pharisees and the scribes and the intellectuals. He hung out with the publicans and the tax collectors and the people who actually needed him. So, and besides, I like publicans. Publicans are cool.
Publicans.
Yeah.
What does that exactly mean?
One way to think of it is a bartender.
Okay, so people who hang out or
at a pub.
run a pub. Yeah.
Not exactly it, but that's
we
the
can
one.
hold it that
we're going
way.
to hold it that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Osama, because I think that especially when we read the Quran, let's say, and I know that we've suggested that to everyone, again, as a way of being informed, to approach the word unbeliever, sometimes translated as infidel, as you've described it, which is like someone who has either actively or out of ignorance been covering up the truth.
Yeah. And we have to remember that the people of the book are not kafir. They're the people of the book. And we tend to forget that. People of the book are the traditions, Jews, Christians, Sabians, what's their faces?
Some people include Buddhists as well.
Yeah. The book has been around innumerable times. Samaritans, that's another one, who are people of the book. So people forget that distinction. People of the book are not unbelievers. They're just people of the book. So there you have that. And I am really grateful that you brought that up, Osama, and that you were able to give us a clearer understanding of the meaning of that word, because what you said was very useful. We'll take all the Arabic we can get.
It's wonderful to have help.
Yeah.
Yes. Do we have maybe one last
We can
question?
have a last question.
Who's someone we have not?
We haven't heard from Em. She's sitting there all quiet.
Do you have anything you'd like to ask us?
or not.
Yeah, it's okay not to be put on the spot too. Who else? Did Mustaqim ask us anything?
I don't think so.
Mustaqim, do you have any questions for us? I do not.
No, not at the moment.
All right,
Okay.
cool. All right then. So I think we're gonna wrap up. However, this is not the last time we will ever do this. And as you all know, we're pretty much always available anyway, but
Yeah.
it's always nice to have kind of this open-ended way to discuss these pretty deep things
Yeah.
that don't necessarily come up in weekly talks.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share and for caring to listen. I mean, we really appreciate that, and we value that you guys give a damn about anything we have to say. Really, that's an honor for us.
Yeah. All right. So
I
we
have
are,
brought us to Brady Bunch mode.
yeah. So let's wave goodbye and say thank you.
Yeah.
And we will see you when we're back from our world tour.
All right, take care, everybody. See some of you soon.
Bye.
Bye.